can cheer some more for a second. Hold on, I got more. Keep cheering, keep going. There's a shirt in this one too. There you go. Awesome. Hey, I won't make you stand up and sit down a whole bunch of times, but just one more. Will you stand up one more time? Hey, she's on it. Awesome. One thing I love about rooms like this is I think that there's this idea that we're moving and we're doing something good right now. So thank you. You can all have a seat. I feel like it's this big built-up moment for each of us. And I want to share with you some interesting things that have been on my heart for a while. So thank you for being here. A few weeks ago, my wife and I, we headed up to Boise because we were going to a wedding in Montana. And yeah, weddings are good. You can cheer for that. We can cheer. It was for a great young couple we know. And as we get up there, Boise's a pretty simple place to fly out of. And so we get there, you check in on your phone and you get your bags going and you're waiting. And our flight gets delayed 3.5 hours. Yeah, so we're going, okay, what's next? And my lovely wife is gluten-free. And so we decided Boise has some awesome gluten-free donuts. And so we're leaving the airport. We're not hanging out there. And we'll go back through that process a little bit later. And I know we've had 6 Idaho winters this year. Anybody ready for that to end? But I want you to have a good picture because April 24th was a Sunday and it was a beautiful day. It was 79 degrees in Boise. And honestly, we went to breakfast, we had coffee, we went for a walk in the beautiful sunshine, and it was the best flight delay I've ever had. I love hanging out with Kenji. She really is awesome. And so what a little gift for me to have a second to breathe and hang out with my wife. So we get back to the airport and we go through that process again. We check our bags, we get to where we need to go, and everything's going good. We hop on the plane and kind of wait a little bit. They do their little instructions, but they're bumming because they're late. So they're trying to hurry through everything. And Kenji and I start a movie, and probably, maybe 10, 15 minutes into our flight, we have this very loud boom, boom on our plane, which I lean over and I kind of jokingly say, that's probably not good. And she leans back and she goes, what was that? And we kind of, pause for a second, and then the turbulence started. And I'd say pretty manageable, but it's bumpy. And you kind of pause your movie and you're just going wow. And it seems like everybody on the plane is holding their breath, kind of like right now. It got quiet, maybe a little too quiet. And right now you're thinking, man, this is a joke. And Cory's starting off with a good joke, but I'm following a comedian, so I'm not joking. This is all real. And then on our very quiet, bumpy plane ride, the pilot comes on. And he says, mumbling, can everybody hear me? And I'm just no. The whole plane, it's no, what? And we all lean in. And he goes, well, we hit a big bird. And at this speed, you can't see big birds. But I saw him. Maybe multiple. And we're a little concerned about the damage. If you don't mind, did you feel that turbulence? Yeah, that's from a bird. And I'm just going, whoa. And he goes, yeah, so we're going to try and turn around. And we're going to go back to Boise. And we're going to land and see if things are okay for safety. And, I think the passengers are trying to figure out, how serious is this? But you kind of know. Like, we don't just do a quick U-turn on planes that often. I'm kind of like, this is serious, man. And you also realize in that moment, there isn't much you can do. I flipped my phone off airplane mode. I was like, I don't think I'm going to affect it that much now. And I was checking if there was any service, but no. And really, you just wait. So I lean over to the girl next to me, because I had Kenji here, and this sweet young girl, she was 25. Her name was Emily. I just go, hey, Emily, you okay? And she goes, this is the first time I've ever flown without my husband. I know. And I was like, man, what a wild moment, right? And she was so sweet. And Kenj and I and her just ended up talking for a bit. And as we came into land back in Boise, I look out the window, and when you see all the fire trucks and ambulances and police cars driving down the runway with you, lights on, like full blown, you kind of think, oh yeah, that was a bigger deal. That was a big deal. And we land hard, but safe. And this is just crazy, right? And I got to thinking, Montana is not that far to drive. Do we want to fly again today? They want us to go get in line to reschedule, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to fly again today or ever. Either way, we'll decide. But some things you trust leaders with, and you stay calm, and you hang in there. And we don't love what we can't control, or when life throws us some curveballs. But our next flight the next morning was smooth, and it was no big deal, and no big birds. So I am literally honored to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Because today, we're talking about some things that you and I can do something about. Amen? Amen. Amen. We can lean in, and you can make a difference. My hope is that we all leave here having heard some things that today are valuable for our time and for your future as we land. Culture and community and the way it all comes together is pretty massive. It seems like the more I prepped and thought and really prayed for you and for me, it just feels like it keeps getting bigger and deeper, and I can't cover all of it, nor do I have all the answers or claim to. But there is so much to this, and I would like for us to push and grow in it. In this room, there is an enormous amount of uniqueness to the situations we all have. So the first thing I would say to write down is go be who you are called to be. Go be who you are called to be. In a room full of people with different pasts, different gifting, who hustle, work hard, accomplish, build, and grow, and do so much, or at least we're trying to, we're all still very different and unique. I can never be as good at being Dusty as Dusty for a variety of different reasons, but mainly because I'm not Dusty. And Dusty's never going to be you either, and he didn't grow up to be me. I love that idea of being inspired by each other. I think we should be inspired by each other in moments, but we probably don't all have the exact same callings. That's part of why humans are so special. We are made unique and different, and I'm actually excited about that. I want to spend my life and my time on earth growing and being who we're called to be and being made for more. At Prime Man, that's what we call it. We call it made for more. We think that there is depth and hope and adventure and purpose and more to each person's life. So in my time, I just want to share with you some honest and genuine things from Kenj in my life, some of our crew, some of our core values, and some pieces of our story and our business story, and some goals. But it may look different than yours. But I think that's where you will see our culture most raw and honest, and even some of the imperfections of our story. It's a little bit nice to know that we're all figuring it out still, and that we're kind of in process. I love community, and I think community is such a special word and the different things that come with it. And some of you, I've just loved getting to know on a day-to-day basis. Some of you before Prime Man, some after, but community is what makes Idaho, Idaho for me. And it's also what makes the Magic Valley so special, and that's why other speakers get to talk about how cool the Magic Valley is. And we don't get that when we're kids growing up here. We're like, get out of here, and then we all come back. But on a smaller level, community is what makes us right here in this room. So thank you for that. Thank you for being part of my community right now. For our team, culture has a lot to do with who we are, who we choose to be in a moment, and who we want to be in the future. I'll read that again. Who we are, who we choose to be in a moment, and who we want to be in the future. As you probably found out, I'm Cory, Kenj, and literally our whole team is pretty much in a row over there, which I love. We're some of the Prime Man crew. And a lot of you know that my wife draws every Prime Man design. My stick figures generally don't make the cut. But I love getting to be some vision and trying to help make it all come to life. And really, our whole crew does so much and speaks into it, and then we all turn around and we do produce it all in the back room of our shop and also in our garage. I used to tell people it was a shop instead of tell them it was my garage because I thought that sounded more professional. But we work very hard together. Kenj and I are both born and raised Idaho kids, and she's always been an artist. Her mom told me this story, and when she was 2, she was already drawing all the time. I have a 5-year-old who also is a talented little artist, but I don't remember it when he was 2. And so it's kind of sweet to see. And a couple of weeks ago, we were together over Easter weekend with Kenji's family, and her sister, not knowing I'm about to get up here and speak, told me this story. And throughout her story, I just kept hearing her bring up, Kenji has always been drawing since I can remember. And that's special. It's some of who she's called to be. If you talk to my sisters, they would probably tell you I didn't even color that well, but that I have a big imagination, probably in an annoying way to them. And honestly, I colored outside the lines on purpose, and I drew hats and beards and leg hair and cigarettes on most of those Disney characters. So I don't know. It happens. But I love seeing gifting develop. Wherever there was an event that Kenj needed to be at, her mom was super smart, and she brought drawing supplies and crayons and paper for Kenj and her siblings. And it's good parenting. So during church as a little girl, Kenj was drawing and coloring. And from a super young age, she was growing in those gifts. In my life, I remember turning my Batman car into a rocket. Probably after I was told not to do this, but it clipped it clipped like the last possible tree branch on takeoff, and it went off course, and it landed in kind of by my neighbor's house and started a fire. And luckily he was outside, and he was mowing his lawn, and he was a super smart guy, so he mowed this big circle around my fire, and he was doing that while I was running inside pretending like I wasn't home. I didn't even clean up the launch pad, so it was like dead giveaway. But there was no way I was answering the door, like no way. And to be honest, like I said, that I was a bit of a dreamer and an adventurer, and that is part of my calling and my gifting and who I'm called to be and how I developed those things as a little kid. Kenj is also very sweet, and she loves people, and she has a ton of other amazing qualities and gifts. But like all of us, in the who we are, part of who she is comes from that, from the good gifts she has and gets to develop, and part of it comes through some of the hard things in life. If we fast forward a little to when Kenj was 14, her and her dad were very close, and one morning, she got up early and walked upstairs and caught her dad before work, and she simply told him she loved him so much as he walked out the door. What she didn't know is that was the last time she would ever see her dad. He went missing that day, and he wasn't found until the next month on Father's Day. And sometimes we have a hard week at work, or something big does not go the way you plan, or maybe just life in general. And sadly, in Kenji's dad's life, on top of probably all those things, he had also been prescribed some medication for his heart that is now known to trigger some negative adverse reactions and effects. And that day, he took his life. A guy who everyone loved, and nobody saw it coming. And a guy who really loved God and loved his family, and he had this really tough moment where he made a terrible decision. And that's part of our story as owners of Prime Man. And we share it sometimes, and sometimes we don't for different reasons, but we want to share it today, partially because Prime Man is some beauty from the ashes in our lives. And my boys don't get to have Kenji's dad as grandpa, but in the hardest moment of their mom's life and in their family's life, she ultimately trusted God, and she kept going, and what she found is there is hope. She kept drawing and using her gifts, and that's a light to us, and it makes up part of who we are. For us, it seems like sometimes the thing we want and need is on the other side of some pain, and sometimes it's on the other side of hard. And for me, to be honest with you, sometimes it's on the other side of fear, like we already talked about today. But life is so good and full of hope, and it's full of good things for us. Kenji and her siblings really came together and hung on through all of this, and they became very close, even when things don't make sense. And I think that some of the most important and deepest parts of each of our culture in this room comes from our responses, both to the good and to the bad in life. Sorry about that. Can I challenge you today, if you haven't heard it in a while, to tell your neighbor that there is hope? You can do it out loud. I know I'm not as... You can tell the other person too, because now we just told this side, and this side needs some help right now. There is hope. Even when life gets hard. My goal is to live in a way where you actually hear and see that. So our first core value at Prime Man, and I know it's a little bit different for a business, but our first core value is kindness. Not because we believe the customer is always right. Like, honestly, nobody believes that. And you guys are business people, so nobody believes that. But because you're a human, and because you matter, we want to choose to care about you. And we empathize with you. And before we go any further, one other thing I would just like to say that's in this same topic, I really believe that you are already as valuable as you can be. Because you are born valuable, and you are made for more. Don't settle. Our world sucks at this, but we should treat you like that. And I don't know if Kenji's dad was or wasn't able to hear that in his last few days if he was told, but we want you to hear it, and really hear it in your heart. And frankly, I have so much to work on. I don't even believe we're enough in that sense. I need to get better at a lot of things. We could probably improve on skills, on productivity, on administration, on listening, on kindness, on grace, and a lot more. And I'm cool with that, partially because why we're here is we all need some of those goals. We all need to work and take these steps. But also because our happiness and doing what we're good at isn't enough to truly fulfill us. We need a higher calling in life that's bigger than just me. But I believe your value is there because that's determined by deeper things. A guy named Ben Stewart has this saying. He says, what you think about, you will care about. And what you care about, you will chase. What do you think about somebody else's value? What do you think about your own value? What do we dwell on, and what repeats over and over and over in each of our heads? Maybe sometimes we could stop doing the stuff to be seen as valuable, but instead, knowing your value is already there, we do it because it's part of your purpose and your calling and your gifting and the made for more in your life. And if all you hear from me today is that you are incredibly valuable, and we mean that, I will feel pretty good. Amen. One person, yes. You'll know, yes, thank you, Mark, my brother. You'll know a little bit more about how we build our own culture at Prime Man. It's kind of interesting, but before we talk to a customer, we simply try to remember that they are so valuable, and we choose kindness. And before we correct an employee, and we don't even call them employees, we call them Prime Man fam, we call them part of our team, we call them our crew. We don't even like that word, employee. But before we correct each other, we simply try to remember their incredible value. And so we navigate the correction with kindness. And before we are hypercritical of ourselves, we try to remember and speak truth about our own value, even to ourselves. And the avenue we can do all this is through simple kindness. And real quick here, I probably don't have to say this because we all know this about ourselves, but I am super imperfect. And if I'm honest, the hardest person on me is often me. And you are probably the same sometimes. Could I commit to own the things I need to own today and forgive myself and turn the page? You may need to commit to that too. Because the battlefield of our mind sets the tone of how we lead and love and walk through life. And we probably need some reconciling once in a while if I'm going to do life with myself or if I'm going to do life with you. There are moments when we can own it and we can turn the page. The crazy part about all of that part is I think what this all does as our kind of foundation we're building today is it allows freedom to thrive in our vision. If we can get some of those foundational pieces, we can have freedom. And I don't care if you feel called to be a banker or an athlete or a business owner or a mom or a dad or whatever your awesome vision is. We won't thrive long term if we don't see value in others or in ourselves. You might make some money, but you won't have that lasting joy. And I can even treat myself with kindness sometimes and have a habit of that and go and do my calling and be who I'm called to be. Because for me, I really do love and enjoy people. It's part of my made for more. Like, I enjoy when you walk up and just say hello and have a free cup of coffee at Prime Man. And I'm like, hey, do you want a LaCroix? I know, I used to hate them too. They're good, aren't they? Weird, right? And we can just have that. I don't get it. Why do we drink those? Because people influence us, right? My crew brings those to work, and now I love them. Anyways. Again, this is that idea of who are we? Who are we choosing to be? And who do we want to be someday? It informs all of our culture and our community. Haley is one of our crew at Prime Man, and she's a leader with us, and she is very wise. But the other day, we just had this conversation, and she said, does a good employer hire someone just to fire them? Like, what an interesting question. Does a good employer hire someone just to fire them? And if we simply look at each person we hire as an employee to use, everyone is replaceable. Everybody will feel like we can fill that position. But if we look at each person we hire as someone who is incredibly valuable, they are irreplaceable. And maybe we can help set them up to succeed. And we can help draw them up to more and help them thrive. And it's not that every employee works out perfect. I get that. Or that every job is always fun. But it gives each person the chance to make themselves and our team better. You and I living like that matters. Father's Day has mixed emotions for us. We generally celebrate, and there are tears in my home every year. But we have learned a lot from that day and things connected to that day. And some culture pieces are just going to come out in your life. It's going to come out with your family and your friends and the people you do life with in your communities. We are influenced and influencing everywhere. And I'm inspired by other people's stories. I really am. If you haven't heard of the J Foundation, has anybody heard of the J Foundation? Man. So good. The Vickeries and Jamie Shuttler, they're doing like an amazing job, and we got to take our whole crew through their little boot check moment, and I encourage you, if you haven't heard of it, I'm serious, like go take your team, because they do some things based on some similar ideas, and it's such a blessing to go be encouraged by them, because they seek to take care of you, and they care about your hope, and they want to remind you of that. The next piece I want to share with you about us is we have been on a big journey, okay? And you are on a journey, and it's a big process. And I really hope that that encourages you. And I even just ask you, like, write that down. If you want another thing to write down, like, you are on a journey. Because that idea, and the more I listen, like if you get this, you'll listen and then you'll hear it again and again and again and again. But this idea of, wow, overnight success is often 10 years in the making. It seriously is. And a lot of it is still changing for most business owners, right? It is nuts, and the world is nuts, and it's all a crazy ride. But if you feel behind today on what you're trying to do, I would really love for you to listen and just hear a little bit of another perspective. If you fast forward to our lives, after high school, Kenji and I ended up in college together, which was awesome. Good big moment for me. And she was going to school for fine art and commercial art degrees while I was getting my generals, but I was intrigued by business and physical therapy and math. And what I'm trying to say is I didn't know which major to pick. We met early on as freshmen, and we were just playing some ultimate frisbee, some collegiate rec stuff, you know how it goes. And then I just said hi to her in the halls for 5 months. But through another friend, we all started hanging out more and more, and this community started getting together, and literally like 4 days a week, somebody would be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, I'm doing this. And it's like you're doing nothing actually all the time, but it's awesome because of the people you're hanging out with. And one day, Kenj and I were sitting at Java, and I remember her saying, you know, a lot of people ask me, what would you ever do with an art degree? And she said they sometimes kind of ask that in a little bit of a condescending way. And I said, hey, like, what do you say back to that? And she goes, I just love and feel called to do art, and it's really special for me. To which I said, keep saying that. Like, that is sweet and a great answer. And as just a close friend of hers who loves vision and has rockets happening out of my Batman cars, I said, maybe you should draw some cool shirts. And then you could sell them, and you could tell those same people who are being condescending, you're a professional artist. I've never heard of somebody doing that. And later that summer, we started dating, which was a good moment. And if my memory serves me correctly, one sunny afternoon, a couple weeks in, we sat at a park and we drew our outdoorsy store, where she hand drew the t-shirts, and we had cool Idaho stuff, and we even had some other pieces to the store that maybe are still yet to come. We didn't know that that was the first business plan of Prime Man back in 2008. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? The actual Prime Man Press as a business didn't come to life until 2017. We needed 9 years. And the funny thing is, when it came to life in 2017, it was not in downtown Twin, it was in our garage. He's not making that story up. And part of it even still is to this day. And we literally have had people stop by while our little boy runs around in a diaper trying to pick which design we're gonna do for them. We walk out in the garage, we print the shirt, and we're like, check out this awesome shirt. And it's like, man, I can't believe this is working. You know? Like, what in the heck? But our journey needed a lot of incubating over those 9 years, and it really has been a crazy process. But we love our jobs, and we love our crew, and we love seeing people come into our shop, and we love making shirts you actually want to wear and hats you actually want to wear. And Kenji is a professional artist. Yeah. Well, I am a professional t-shirt folder. It's amazing. Through our lives, it really feels like we have ridden the waves that God sends our way. And we try to be people who enjoy the seasons, and we work our butts off while we try and have more vision, more direction, and figure out what the made for more is in our life. But it's taken so much time, and letting that simmer has been gold for our business and for our culture. Everyone can be in a hurry sometimes. Just go drive down Blue Lakes on your way home. Yeah, we all know, but hang in there. It takes time, and we all have seasons. And if you want somebody to help you merge a little bit as you drive down Blue Lakes, you could put this Idaho sticker on there, and they might be like, oh, cool, Prime Man guy, and they'll just let you ride. I know a guy who would help you out with that if you need some help later. The next thing I want to share with you is that everybody has business advice. Everybody has another way of doing things. Everybody has opinions. Everybody has another way to parent. Everybody has different routes. Everybody has strong ones sometimes and loud ones sometimes, and some are really good, and some are right, and some are wrong. But there are a lot, and this complicates finding truth. When Kinj and I were going to have our first kiddo, we really wanted to do a good job, and we got lots of advice, and it never ends, and I think that's good. I love hearing different ways to love my kids well, and I so badly want to win my family's hearts. But one thing I think about like every single week is advice from this guy named Ron, who I respect and appreciate. And about 6 years ago, he said to me, you know the first rule of parenting, right? And he's kind of an intimidating guy. And I scrambled for a second. I felt like I forgot to study for a quiz, or maybe a public speaking event was happening. Just so you know, heart kind of beats fast. And he goes, man, if you are going to be a dad, you gotta know. And like I said, he's this guy I respect for sure. And in my head, I'm going through that list, and I'm trying to think of the right answer. And all clammed up, I finally just say, hey, what is it, man? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is the answer? Just give it to me. And he just looks at me and he says, Cory, the first rule of parenting is take a deep breath. And he smiles. And man, I've definitely found that one to be true. I would also venture to say that the first rule of healthy culture in business is the same as the first rule in parenting. Take a deep breath. So for a moment, can I ask you to pause right now? And I would love for everyone to take a literal deep breath. Feels kind of good. However, for a bunch of motivated, beautiful, valuable, amazing business people, that was super weak. Let's take one more, but like the best one you've ever taken. Okay, ready? That was good. I like it. That was a 10. I don't know if you heard it, but it was. I'm giving it to you. Our life depends on breathing, and that's probably a good lesson that survival is built on that. The simplicity of that is so good for me in a lot of moments, whether it's my kids or my team or myself. Sometimes without that pause and deep breath, I can miss it. I can miss the process of how to love our kids well in the moment, or to love my wife well in a moment, or to navigate my own heart or my mission or our mission as a crew, or to navigate my own leadership. So I believe healthy culture takes a deep breath. And what it does for me is it takes this natural piece of me called my reaction, and it allows it to turn into a response. Don't get me wrong, there are moments that require us to react and move and go and do. If my boys run into the street, man, I'm running. I want to react, and I want to save them from the danger that's at hand. I want to react and move. But there are also other moments when my same little boy that I love so much clocks me on the side of the head with his monster truck. And maybe not that hard, but, it happens. We're kind of into monster trucks right now. We've been to like 4 monster truck shows in the last 9 months. Anyways, we're into it right now. And in that moment, I need to respond, not to react. I need some wisdom and patience and a deep breath for my 5-year-old. Because if I don't, Gravedigger is going to learn a little bit about his name. And I'm going to show him what crushing cars looks like, because that is my reaction. It is, man, this is so like in the moment, But as crazy as it sounds, accidents happen with your team, with your kids, with your husband and with your wife. And honestly, maybe sometimes rather than capital punishment for Gravedigger, maybe we should laugh. Maybe our team needs some laughter and we need to play that game, because there are moments when it just happened and we can lead well with a deep breath. As leaders, we are all given some power. How do we carry that? Sometimes everybody is saying just do what you feel, but what about when truth in real life does happen? I feel certain ways at certain times, and feelings are such a gift. They are important and fun, but it seems like sometimes they are bad drivers. Maybe I can let feelings roll in the passenger seat sometimes and let them be a good friend instead of letting them drive all the time. And for example, I just want to give you this one because I think it's real right now. Right now, there is this war in Ukraine because of a person's abuse of power and doing what they feel. And this isn't new, but lately I've just been pondering this mindset in my own time of power being a responsibility and a calling and a gift to carry well, rather than this force to use. And I think it can actually be beautiful if we carry it sacrificially and with honor, and we work through these things, and maybe even listen and learn and care. Our kids and our employees, or our team, and our communities need us to carry the power we are given well and with wisdom. Are you with me? Yes. Okay. Take a deep breath. Be someone who carries power well. We all have it. In order to have healthy culture in community, I think we need to set a goal. Are you ready for this one? I think we need to set a goal for a rhythm of flourishing. I love that the idea of rhythm has come up multiple times because there's this saying, and it's leaders are repeaters. And I think it goes into like, man, if you hear something and then you hear it again, and then you hear it again, and then you hear it again, hey, listen. Because maybe that's for me. Maybe that's for you. Maybe this is a big point. And I can't play guitar, but man, if I could, this would be that moment to be like, check out this rhythm thing, but I don't do that. I thought about bringing somebody else. I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but my imagination just getting out of control again. Anyways, a rhythm of flourishing is so important and so crucial for you and your team. I think of our lives as like a little pie chart, and if you really do just break it down that simply, like what does a healthy pie chart look like in your life? How big is each piece? Which pieces are actually kind of little? For my growing up, I struggled with high ceilings and low floors. And I remember this specific time when I had the best basketball game of my life. And I was just feeling good all night. And I just couldn't miss, it felt like, in the first half. And I think I scored 27, and it was this rivalry game. And coming out of the half, I'm all jazzed and amped. And first time down the court, I steal the ball from this kid, and I'm on this fast, and it's still a close game. I'm on this fast break layup, and I miss, wide open layup. And I'm like, dang it, I was playing so good. What just happened? And a little bit later, I get fouled, and I brick 2 free throws, and it was tied when I bricked these free throws. So I'm like, shame, and I'm having this moment. And then we have this good fourth quarter, and we win. And I'm feeling pretty great until this person in my family caught me in the hall by the gym. And they said, what happened on that fast break and on those free throws. And I know this kind of sounds dumb, but in that moment, I was crushed by that. Because dads have some power. And I didn't go to Applebee's with the team, and I know it was Applebee's, but that was a big deal back then. And honestly, I went home by myself, and I sat in my room. And it's crazy, because I was just super hard on myself. And culture is always coming from somewhere. It's always moving, and it has this constant of change. But we have to find healthy rhythms to combat that moment. Your rhythm plays a major role in how you respond and keep this all healthy. In my story, I don't even know if they meant to hurt me. Maybe it was more about pushing me, but even if they did, I let it affect me deeply, and it didn't have to. I was too immature to walk in humility and grace that night, to take a deep breath, to remember their value, to remember my value, to be kind, and to celebrate, even in the moment of missing the mark on some level. Ultimately, I didn't know how to have a rhythm of flourishing that had any consistency in my own life. And I'm still working on this. But like I said earlier, it's little and big things. And one of my examples of healthy rhythm in my own life is I love every day I do this. I get up every morning and I have a cup of coffee and quiet time before I do anything. And it is so important, and it's really, really, really valuable for me and how I walk through my day and for my own flourishing. And it sounds small, but it's pivotal. Maybe you need to eat breakfast. Maybe you need to work out. I mean, it is still New Year, kind of. I know we all canceled our gym memberships by now, but you know. Maybe you need to actually rest. Maybe you need a day to breathe so that you can grow in some creativity. I think the ball might get rolling on the bigger things if we can be a little bit more consistent on the little. When you dreamt up your future, you dreamt of how that could look in healthy ways without even knowing it. I've never heard somebody say, man, I just want to steal that ball. I want to go on that fast break and miss every time. Nobody dreams like that. Nobody's like, man, I just can't wait to brick that next free throw. No, we dream big dreams that are healthy, and dreams are free. Dreams are free. It's fun. Even if it's not as a business owner situation, we dream of life to the fullest. Was paying bills literally the only piece you always thought about? Or somebody else's approval? No. We dream of being firefighters and astronauts and nurses and doctors and entrepreneurs and moms and climbing Everest. Some people dream about that bigger than others because we just dream. Some people are really doing it. Anyways, we dream of big things, and we want people to gather with us. And little girls dream about Prince Charming and that perfect wedding, and little boys dream about fighting those bad guys. And that is all good. I'd like to throw out there that in our pie chart of flourishing, paying bills is there, but how big is that slice, and how much of your time do you get consumed on that topic rather than doing the rhythms and the things you need to be doing right now? There are hopes and dreams of more depth in you. Was it about stepping on everybody else to get there? I don't think so. What are your gifts? Who are you? Who are you choosing to be in a moment? And who do we want to be someday? What are we doing, and why do we do it? And how do we get pointed in the right direction? My last key point is hopefully some of the answer to this, and maybe to land the plane, if you know what I mean. It's you. We need you. We need you to be made for more. Your culture impacts other culture and relationship and community. Cool people make Prime Man work for us. We say that so often. Cool people make it work. The other day I was walking down Main Street with a friend, and Shane I don't know if you know this, but Shane owns Kodo next door. And Shane was driving by and he rolled down his window and he says, "You look like you need an IPA." Yeah, okay. And my buddy Brandon goes, "Hey, I'm coming there for dinner. I'll get one in a minute." And Shane goes, rolls his window down a little bit further and he goes, "Dude, these new ones aren't released yet. They're my favorite." And he hands 2 bottles of beer out the window on Main Street. For real. And I was like, whew, that matters. And in our order and how we do things to have healthy, thriving culture and community, I really believe we need to see each other and live in that space that loves others well. Before we signed our lease, literally, he talked about it being a rocks throw away, and I appreciate that we're not throwing rocks at Prime Man. But anyways, we're right there, but across the street is this store called Brass Monkey. And before we had a downtown store, we used to sell in Brass Monkey. So I had this little tension in me. So I'm like, okay, this building is available possibly, but we sell across the street. And so I called Kinsey and I said, "Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and just chat with you for a minute?" And we just go and we start talking and we're talking about all kinds of stuff. And then finally I asked the question, "Hey, what do you think about this building being open?" And she's like, "Are you interested in it?" And I'm like, "Maybe, I don't know. There's 4 that we're looking at. 2 of them I really like, 2 of them I think are terrible, but I'm looking, I don't know." And she just kind of tells me how, man, I want the downtown to grow. I want bigger things to happen. I would love for you to be nearby. And honestly, Cory, if you don't open downtown now, I'm going to be pissed. Seriously. And it caught me so off guard because literally I needed Kinsey and her kindness to be like, I'm going to be pissed if you don't open Prime Man nearby. We need you. And to be honest, as much as I love vision and business, and Kinsey is a very talented artist, we definitely need people to speak life. People like Haley, who works for us, and sometimes it feels like she lives with us. And Angie, who literally lived with us this year. And Emma has been such a gem on our team, and we have some new recent hires here today, and we need our people. We need Abby and Grant and Izzy and Tess and Beth and Aisha, and we need our families and good friends and good businesses nearby to encourage us and pray for us and be with us along the way, who buy in and are part of our lives. People who shop in my garage. That's pretty Idaho, you know. We may never have taken some of the steps for Prime Man without you. And we really can't even tell you how many others were involved along the way. It's been so cool to now look back. And I know a lot of times we're looking ahead like, man, if I could just get to here. But there's a beautiful thing if you'll hang in there. It's cool to look back at the seasons you've gotten to go through. If you don't mind, would you look at your neighbor and tell them you're made for more? If you want to look at the neighbor on the other side real quick, we don't want to leave them out again. And our Prime Man crew has a little gift for you. They're going to pass them out right now, but there's a little sticker, and it's just Kenji's handwriting. And what we tell people with this sticker is this is supposed to be the reminder for you, and it really is about you, and we believe you are made for more. I thank you guys so much for your time today. I think leaders in a room listening seems very powerful to me. So thank you guys so much for your time. Don't forget to grab your sticker. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.